Hello guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome to Season 2 of the Rook the Rascal. We are so excited here to present to you our brand new upcoming series and to offer a little bit of an introduction into our game system. The new series, Those Damn Kids, will be run through the Tales from the Loop RPG, a sci-fi adventure kind of game that is very reminiscent to Vampire in a lot of ways, but, well, we'll get to the rules in a little bit. I am your GM/storyteller, wherever you want to call me, Tyson Fraleigh, and I am so excited to bring you on this sci-fi, just absolutely wacky journey. And so, preempting our first episode, I wanted to go into a little bit of introducing the kind of world that you should be expecting and some of the rules for the game. To start off, Tales from the Loop was originally an art book and later a TV series produced by Simon Stalenhag, as well as Amazon. If you have Amazon Prime, you can look up the TV series there. It is essentially a series of stories defined by young people growing up, learning more about the world, all in the presence of a very large experimental physics center that causes the town or the city or the area that is around them to start acting in strange and alien ways. Dinosaurs and androids that kind of wander the wilderness, and massive floating ships that kind of go from point A to point B. The world is set in the 1980s, so it's very Back to the Future, very Stranger Things, that kind of very heavy sci-fi, but very much grounded in a colorful and very over-the-top kind of landscape. Huge hair, neon colors. Not only that, but also a time of political strife, both in the micro of whatever country you're from, and the macro, dealing with the near end of the Cold War, but those tensions still remaining. Add in the massive sci-fi elements brought in by Sweden and all of the major companies that focus in robotics, and it adds a very nice twist to the whole thing. But I think the most touching to at least this type of game and to the entire connection to Tales from the Loop in general is its recurring themes about growing up, about learning who you are, becoming who you are. The game is primarily focused in you playing a character that is between the ages of 10 to 16. So there's a lot of opportunity for roleplay that is more focused on identity and discovering more things about yourself and where do you lie in the world? What is the world in comparison to you, and what do you want to give to it? What do you want to take away from it? So with all that in mind, let's get down to a few of the more nitty-gritty rules so that way you can follow along with what is actually going on while we're rolling dice and the such. Very similar to Vampire the Masquerade, there are skills that are tied to attributes. Each attribute has a number corresponding to it. Those attributes are body, tech, heart, and mind. Body rolls are focused in things around dexterity, constitution, and strength. So these will be things that kind of collide into being able to move something, or moving around sneakily, or even getting into a fight. Tech is a very hands-on kind of repair. It's very focused in being able to build things, being able to craft things. It's very much the practical aspect of the mind attribute, which is dedicated more to determining how things are going to operate. It's very much like the intellect focus of a character. Finally, heart is a attribute that is focused mostly in empathy and being able to understand other characters, being able to figure out exactly what's going on, people's intentions. It's very much the charisma, but also a little bit of wisdom in there, being able to figure out what people are feeling and also being able to respond accordingly based on your social situation. Now, in this game, there is no health score. There is no thing that you mark off how many wounds you take or you're incapacitated or dead. it is actually impossible for a character to die in Tales from the Loop. Instead, you are focused into conditions, depending on your situation. Conditions can cause you to take less dice when you're rolling them, making a challenge even harder depending on the situation. These conditions include getting scared, getting overly upset about something, becoming injured, becoming exhausted. If you fill up all 4 of these conditions, you immediately become what is known as broken. If you are broken, it doesn't mean you're dead, it doesn't mean you're out of the fight, as it were. It just means that for the remaining section of the scene, you will no longer be able to contribute. You will have passed out from the just overwhelming cacophony on your sensations. It could be just being like, just essentially your body just kind of giving up. And in the next scene, you'll be able to be woken up, being able to recontribute back to the story. Now, this is to say that conditions are not forever. Conditions are best dealt with 2 different options. The first one is discovering or going to seek out your anchor. Your anchor is the one adult that you trust. If you are able to speak to your anchor, you are able to remove some conditions that are applied to you. They will be a kind ear, being willing to really listen to you and really consider what you're going through, and really just be a great mentor figure. The second option is going to your hideout. Your hideout is a location that is special to you and your group that no one else knows about. At your hideout, you are also able to remove conditions, as you're all able to feel safe in your environment. You're able to know that no one is going to surprise you or jump out at you. You feel calm, collected, and you're able to essentially put yourself back together after a particularly exhausting adventure. Now for actually rolling the dice. You will be rolling entirely d6s, where 1 through 5s are failures, and only 6s are successes. Yeah, this is a very risky sort of game. The number of dice you roll is equal to the number of an attribute plus the number of a skill. Every attribute has skills kind of baked in. There are certain ones where, for example, body is sneak, force, move. Mind is comprehend, investigate, that sort of thing. Each one of these ones will have numbers that you have determined for yourself based on what you want the character to look like. The best way to kind of go about this is that in the actual handbook, there are a number of playbooks or archetypes that you are able to pull from. This includes multiple different kinds of suggestions and baseline items that you're kind of able to start off with. Some of the archetypes include the rocker kid, the one who found rock and roll at a really young age and now just wants to dedicate their life to music, or the computer geek, where you found your passion through computers and coding and hacking and technology of all sorts. All of these archetypes will give you a solid baseline of where exactly you should put your skills, where exactly you should put your attributes, and build the corresponding numbers, give you some suggestions for character drives, for different parts of your character to help flesh out the backstory. These archetypes also give a great idea of what you should put your pride into. I'll explain pride in a moment, but back to rolling the dice. You take a number of d6s equal to the number attributed to the attribute being asked to roll, plus the skill being asked to roll. You roll that number, count how many 6s you roll. Challenge ratings in this game are much lower than basically any other RPG out there. One success is still considered a major success, especially with the odds here. So keep that in mind. You might not need a crazy amount of successes just to get what you want. If you gain additional successes, well, then you've gone above and beyond. Now, finally, we're going to look to how can you boost your rolls, especially if you have conditions already at play and you want to get the highest number of dice possible. The 3 major ways are, 1, getting assistance from one of your allies. In doing so, you'll gain an additional d6. The second one is if you want to push a roll. You can do this once per adventure, basically, once per day. And when you do so, you will be taking a condition. However, it works very similar to willpower in Vampire, where you are able to re-roll any unliked dice. Any dice that you don't want, just re-roll them and see what happens. This is especially helpful if you have a big dice pool, but you didn't get what you were looking for. The final way is to use your pride. This again can be used once per day / once per adventure, depending on what kind of game you're running. A pride is something that you take pride in about yourself, that you bring to the table. When you use your pride, you immediately gain 1 success. As long as you can show the GM and your fellow players how exactly you are using the thing that you take in pride about yourself and bringing it to the table in this aspect. You do not gain any conditions with this one. It's just an immediate success, which can be very useful in a narrative storytelling moment, but also in a very clutch moment where you really need to change the tide of where a scene is going. And that's about it. I want to thank you so much for listening to the introduction here. And from all of us here working for the Rook and the Rascal, we are so excited to introduce our brand new cast for this series, to introduce our brand new characters, this brand new world. I think it's going to be one hell of a thing to enjoy. I suppose we will leave it at that until next week, where episode 1 will be coming out. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, we'll see you around.